Composite Gloves here, and today we're going to talk about LFOs. They're very similar to envelopes in control-wise and stuff. So what's the deal with an LFO? Well, I'm glad you asked. An LFO, now this is, when you open it up, it's the same thing. It's a controller source, and these are other things that I'm not going to talk about quite yet. I just wanted to cover these two because these two are like the fundamental ones you'll find in every synth. But in Sytrus specifically, an LFO is a low-frequency oscillation, so it's below 20 hertz. And it is used to be a controller source to tell a signal to turn on and off continuously. Now, I don't know why the LFO starts out like this, because I feel like this is the most unintuitive LFO thing ever. But here's what an LFO, in my opinion, should be the default envelope. Even delete that. This should be the default envelope. Like, that should be it. That's what happens when you use an LFO. So, okay. And let me get rid of the sustain. Okay. Now you can see I could drag my LFO around if I want to adjust the points. And you can tempo seek it. You can make skews, so you can skew it. And this one is represented on there. You can do a pulse width. So you can do something like that. So it's on. I turned it on. It's controlling the volume, just like my previous one. I can increase the speed. Now I tempo synced it. And the global, again, it applies a retrigger every time I trigger it. Should be familiar from the envelope one. Pretty cool. So all these are pretty much the same. Now you can analyze an audio file on this one. And what that does is I believe you could do that on envelopes too. I didn't talk about that. And analyzing the audio file, you can analyze it and it will take the peaks and lows from the audio file and generate some sort of an envelope for it. It usually looks pretty wild and crazy. So you might want to choose something that's a conservative envelope. Like it's on or off, not something like insane. Maybe you could use like a sine wave, see what that comes out as. It'd be kind of interesting. However, an LFO probably would do that for you. If you did that on the envelope, I guess you'd get extensive control. So the idea is you have a repeating thing that tells something to turn on and off in a repeating fashion. You control the speed. You see it syncs up nicely with our things. Now, even this, I like this because when you let go, it turns off, and this is what's happening. Now, you can add these points. You've seen me add these points, and you can scroll and move this back and forth like I've said a few times already. So this point right here essentially controls the amplitude. We're starting off with 1 point. When you start off, just delete all the points. They're confusing. So you start off with 1. You can add another point, and you can see we can control the amplitude as you go around here, and I can change the curve. I have my ADSR thing, so I can loop a particular part of an LFO, something I personally have not done, which it sounds like a kind of interesting idea. And you have your arpeggiator options here, which is another interesting thing. So if I go to single curve, because these are mostly settings that I leave for my envelope, and I want this to be a single curve. I want that. So you see we control the amplitude when we do stuff like this. It just starts to look really crazy. So I could bring this down, maybe invert it. So I've essentially inverted my LFO. This could be a big deal depending on what you're controlling. Like if it's pitch or something, you'll invert which way it's going. So simply by putting a wall, this is a useful trick. By putting a wall somewhere, you've simply inverted it. So you may consider doing something a little more transparent. When you put it up, you get your full envelope, and then if you put a point down, you essentially control the amplitude, and you can bring it down gradually, as you can see right here. It goes down gradually. Maybe what you want to do is create a gradual rise and run type deal. So you go down to the midpoint, go over here. You want that. Maybe that's something you want. Maybe you want to go all the way down to 0. Looks kind of like a Batman sign. And so we're going to go to loop start. And this, by definition, is our end because that's just the end. There's nowhere else to go. Actually, I'm not sure what would happen if let me go back to my LFO, if I made this not the loop end. Nope, it works. It still works. Now, on this thing, it's going to play all the way through, though. That might not be something you want. So you may want to have it loop in, because then it's going to play through, and when you let go of the key, it's got to finish whatever part of the envelope it's on. You see it here with the loop end end defined, you can then say stop, and it will stop. So that's one reason why you'd want to do that. Probably a reason I'm not sure I've ever consciously made a decision about. So you can do cool things with an envelope. You can control like your pitch or whatever with it, or your modulation or anything. It's just another option to modulate. If you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe and have a blessed day. Wow.